The sleek black Mercedes pulled up to Hope's Haven Orphanage on a crisp October morning. Jack Thompson adjusted his Italian silk tie, a habit he'd developed over 20 years of business meetings. This visit was different though, no contracts to sign, Northwest deals to close. Just a simple donation to mark his company's expansion into this small Connecticut town. The building stood modest against the autumn sky, its red brick facade showing signs of age but maintained with obvious care. Children's laughter drifted from the playground around back, a sound that made Jack pause as he stepped out of his car. It had been years since he'd been around children, not since his last family reunion when his cousins brought their kids. Jack checked his Patek Philippe watch, 10 a.m. sharp. Helen Martinez, the orphanage director, had agreed to give him a tour before the formal donation presentation. His PR team had insisted on photos for the company newsletter, though Jack had negotiated down their more elaborate publicity suggestions. Walking through the front door, Jack immediately felt out of place. His tailored suit and polished Oxford shoes contrasted sharply with the worn but cheerful environment. Crayon drawings lined the walls, and a basket of well-loved toys sat in the corner of the reception area. The smell of chicken soup wafted from what he assumed was the kitchen. "Mr. Thompson, welcome to Hope's Haven." Helen Martinez approached with a warm smile, her gray hair pulled back in a practical bun. She extended her hand, and Jack noticed the stark difference between her practical attire and his business wear. "Please, call me Jack," he replied, shaking her hand. "Thank you for having me today. The children are just finishing their morning activities. Would you like to see our facilities first, or would you prefer to meet some of the kids?" Before Jack could answer, a group of children burst through the back door, returning from their playground time. They moved past him like a small whirlwind, some curious about the stranger in their midst, others too engaged in their games to notice. That's when Jack saw him. A boy, perhaps 11 or 12, hung back from the group. He was wearing jeans with patches on the knees and a faded blue t-shirt. His sandy brown hair fell across his forehead in a way that made Jack's breath catch. It was exactly how his own hair had looked at that age. The boy looked up, and Jack found himself staring into eyes that mirrored his own, down to the unusual green-gray color his mother had always called storm clouds over the sea. The resemblance was uncanny, almost disturbing in its precision. "That's Tyler," Helen said, noticing Jack's fixed gaze. "He's one of our newer residents. Came to us about 6 months ago." Jack nodded absently, still watching as Tyler moved toward a quiet corner of the room. The boy pulled out a sketchbook and began drawing, seemingly lost in his own world. Around his neck hung a silver pendant that caught the light. Jack's heart nearly stopped. The pendant, he recognized it instantly. It was identical to the one his mother had worn every day until her death 3 years ago. The same intricate pattern, the same unusual shape that had fascinated him as a child. "The pendant," Jack said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Where did he get that?" Helen looked surprised at the question. "It was with him when he arrived. One of the few possessions he had. He says it belonged to his mother." Tyler looked up then, as if sensing their attention. His eyes met Jack's, and something passed between them, a flash of recognition, though that was impossible. The boy tilted his head slightly, studying Jack with an intensity that seemed beyond his years. "Would you like to meet him?" Helen asked. Jack found himself nodding, though his mind was racing with questions. The resemblance, the pendant, it couldn't be coincidence. As he approached Tyler's corner, the boy closed his sketchbook and stood, displaying the same unconscious formality Jack had learned from his own mother. "Hello, Tyler," Jack said, working to keep his voice steady. "I'm Jack Thompson." "I know," Tyler replied with a slight smile. "I saw your picture in the newspaper last week. You're building the new tech center downtown." The boy's voice had the same precise diction that Jack's mother had insisted upon throughout his childhood. Each coincidence felt like another piece of an impossible puzzle. "That's right," Jack managed. "Do you like technology?" "I prefer drawing," Tyler said, then hesitated before adding, "but I think technology is interesting too. It's like drawing with electricity instead of pencils." That perspective, so similar to how Jack's mother had described his early interest in computers, made his head spin. He needed to know more about this boy, about the pendant, about every detail that seemed to connect them across an impossible divide. The conversation that followed would change both their lives forever, though neither could have guessed just how deeply their stories were intertwined. The following week found Jack returning to Hope's Haven, this time without the pretense of business. He'd cancelled 2 board meetings and rescheduled a vital client presentation, earning concerned looks from his assistant. But he couldn't shake the pull he felt toward the orphanage, toward Tyler. He found the boy in the orphanage's small library, hunched over a drawing pad. Sunlight streamed through dusty windows, catching the silver pendant that had haunted Jack's thoughts for days. Tyler was so absorbed in his work that he didn't notice Jack's approach until he was standing right beside him. "That's impressive," Jack said, studying the detailed sketch of what appeared to be a fantasy landscape, complete with floating islands and impossible bridges. Tyler didn't startle at the sudden company. Instead, he looked up with that same measured gaze that reminded Jack so much of himself. "Mom always said imagination is more important than skill," he replied, then added more quietly, "She used to draw with me." Jack pulled up a chair, noting how Tyler's hand unconsciously went to the pendant as he mentioned his mother. "My mother was an artist too," Jack said, the words coming out before he could stop them. "She believed creativity was the key to understanding life." Tyler's eyes widened slightly. "That's exactly what my mom used to say." He hesitated, then turned to a fresh page in his sketchbook. "She would always start her stories with a drawing. Like this one." His pencil moved across the paper with confident strokes, creating the image of 2 young women sitting under a tree. Jack's throat tightened. The tree taking shape on the paper was unmistakable, the old oak that had stood in his childhood backyard, the one his mother had called her thinking tree. "Where did you hear that story, Tyler?" "Mom told me about her best friend from school. They would sit under this special tree and make plans for the future." Tyler's hand moved to the pendant again. "She said her friend gave her this necklace there. It was their secret place." Jack's mind raced back to conversations with his own mother, how she would sometimes grow quiet and distant, speaking of a friend she'd lost touch with years ago. He'd never pressed for details, assuming it was just one of those friendships that time and circumstances had eroded. "May I?" Jack gestured to the pendant. Tyler nodded, lifting the chain over his head and placing it carefully in Jack's palm. The silver felt warm from Tyler's skin. Jack turned it over, his fingers finding the familiar catch that opened the locket portion, a detail he'd watched his mother manipulate countless times throughout his childhood. Inside, he expected to find the same small photograph of his mother as a young woman that he remembered. Instead, he found 2 photos. One showed a young woman he didn't recognize, her smile bright and familiar somehow. The other made his hands shake, his mother, exactly as she looked in the photo he kept in his office, sitting under that same oak tree. "Your mother," Jack said slowly, "what was her name?" "Sarah," Tyler replied. "Sarah Mitchell. But she changed it when she got married. I don't remember what it was after that. I was too young when." He trailed off, his attention returning to his drawing. Jack felt the world shift beneath him. Sarah Mitchell. The name triggered a flood of memories, his mother crying late at night when she thought he was asleep, phone calls that ended abruptly when he entered the room, and most significantly, a name he'd found written over and over in his mother's old journals after her death. "Tyler, how old are you?" 12, he answered, adding shading to the tree in his drawing. "I'll be 13 in December." The timing aligned perfectly with the period when his mother had disappeared for nearly a year, claiming she needed time to find herself. She'd returned different, more reserved, the light in her eyes dimmed. Jack had been too wrapped up in his budding business career to question it deeply at the time. "December 15th. Jack asked, though he already knew the answer. Tyler's pencil stopped moving. He looked up at Jack, really looked at him, as if seeing the similarities between them for the first time. "How did you know that?" Jack handed the pendant back to Tyler, his mind racing with possibilities, each more unsettling than the last. "Tyler, I think there's something we need to discuss with Ms. Martinez. Something about our mother's friendship that might be more important than either of us realized." "Is it about the promise?" Tyler asked, his voice suddenly small. "What promise?" "Mom always said she made a promise under the thinking tree, a promise that she had to break to keep everyone safe. She said someday I'd understand." Tyler closed his sketchbook, his fingers tracing the worn cover. "Is that why you're really here, Mr. Thompson?" Jack stood, feeling the weight of too many coincidences pressing down on him. I don't know exactly why I'm here, Tyler. But I think we need to find out. Together. The boy nodded, gathering his drawing supplies with the same methodical care Jack recognized from his own habits. As they walked toward Helen's office, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that his mother's old pendant wasn't the only thing connecting him to Tyler. The truth, he suspected, would reshape both their lives in ways neither of them could imagine. The following weekend, Jack sat in his home office surrounded by cardboard boxes he'd retrieved from storage. Each contained pieces of his mother's life, journals, photo albums, and letters he'd never had the courage to fully examine after her death. The pendant's discovery had changed everything, turning these boxes from painful memories into potential answers. He pulled out a leather-bound journal dated 1995, the year before his mother's mysterious absence. The pages were filled with her elegant handwriting, but what caught his attention were the pressed flowers between the pages, all from that oak tree she'd loved so much. A photo slipped from between the pages. Two young women, arms linked, standing in front of a college dormitory. On the back, in his mother's handwriting, Elizabeth and Sarah, first day of freshman year. Jack studied Sarah's face, Tyler's mother. The resemblance between Tyler and his younger self made more sense now. Sarah and his mother could have passed for sisters. His phone buzzed, a message from Helen Martinez. Tyler had another dream last night. He's asking for you. Jack had learned about Tyler's dreams during their conversations over the past week. The boy experienced vivid nightmares that seemed more like memories, a woman's voice singing a lullaby, the sound of breaking glass, screaming tires on wet pavement. The same elements appeared night after night. 30 minutes later, Jack walked into Hope's Haven. Tyler sat in the common room, dark circles under his eyes betraying his sleepless night. He looked up as Jack approached, managing a weak smile. It was different this time, Tyler said before Jack could speak. I saw the tree. Jack sat down beside him. Your mother's thinking tree. Tyler nodded. But it wasn't just Mom there. There were two women. They were arguing about something important. One of them was crying. He hesitated. The crying woman, she looked like your mom. From the picture in the locket. Jack pulled out the photo he'd found earlier, showing it to Tyler. Was it this tree? These women? Tyler's hands trembled as he took the photo. Yes. Exactly like this. But how? He looked up at Jack. How do I remember something that happened before I was born? Sometimes our minds create memories from stories we've heard, Jack suggested, though he didn't entirely believe it himself. Your mother must have told you about that day. No, Tyler said firmly. She never talked about the fight. Just about the happy times with her friend. And in my dream. He touched the pendant. They were fighting about this. About a promise. Jack reached into his briefcase and pulled out his mother's journal. Tyler, would you like to help me understand more about our mothers? There might be things in here that connect to your dreams. The boy nodded, moving closer as Jack opened the journal. Together, they began reading entries from that crucial period. Elizabeth's words painted a picture of an intense friendship tested by secrets and impossible choices. May 15, 1995, Jack read aloud. Sarah knows. I couldn't keep it from her anymore. She says she'll help me, but the cost is too high. I can't let her sacrifice everything for my mistake. Tyler's hand shot out, pointing to the next entry. Look at the date, December 15th. Jack's breath caught. Tyler's birthday. The entry was short but devastating. She's gone. Took everything and disappeared. I'll never forgive myself for letting her do this. The promise we made under the tree. I should have known she'd keep it, no matter what. Mr. Thompson, Tyler said quietly, I think I know why they were fighting in my dream. The woman, your mom, she was begging my mom not to leave. She said something about protecting someone important. Jack closed the journal, his mind racing. Tyler, what exactly happened to your mother? How did you end up here? Car accident, Tyler replied, his voice hollow. 3 years ago. They said she lost control in the rain, but... He frowned. I always thought there was something strange about that night. She'd been acting weird all day, making phone calls when she thought I was asleep. She packed a bag, but we never left. Then we went for a drive, and... He stopped, his hand clenching around the pendant. Jack checked the date in his mother's journal. The last entry before her death matched exactly with the date of Sarah's accident. Too precise to be coincidence. "Tyler," Jack said carefully, "I think our mothers shared more than just friendship. I think they shared a secret, something big enough to keep them apart for years. Something they both died protecting." "Is that why you keep coming back here?" Tyler asked. "To figure out the secret." Jack considered the question. His initial fascination with their physical resemblance had evolved into something deeper, a need to understand not just the past, but his place in Tyler's present. "I keep coming back because something tells me we're supposed to figure this out together," Jack answered honestly. "These dreams you're having, this pendant, the timing of everything, it's like they left us a trail to follow." Tyler was quiet for a moment, then said, "Mom used to say that some stories take two people to tell properly. Maybe that's what this is, a story we have to finish for them." Jack nodded, understanding now why his mother had spent her final years trying to write him letters she never sent, making phone calls she never completed. The truth had died with her, but perhaps not completely. In Tyler's dreams and his mother's journals, in the pendant and the old oak tree, pieces of the puzzle remained, waiting to be assembled. "Then let's tell it right," Jack said, placing a hand on Tyler's shoulder. "For both of them." Helen Martinez sat across from Jack in her modest office, her hands folded over a worn manila folder. The afternoon sun cast long shadows through the Venetian blinds, creating prison bar patterns across her desk. She'd called Jack immediately after discovering the file buried in the orphanage's old records. "I've been here 25 years, Helen began, her voice heavy with the weight of revelation. "Your mother, Elizabeth, was one of our most generous donors. She never missed a year, always anonymous, always the same amount, $50,000. Jack leaned forward. "I had no idea she was involved with Hope's Haven. There's more." Helen opened the folder. "The donation started exactly 12 years ago, coinciding with..." She paused, sliding a document across the desk. Jack's hands shook as he read the paper. It was a birth certificate, Tyler's birth certificate. But the mother's name had been redacted, covered with thick black ink. Only a single letter remained visible at the beginning, E. "Elizabeth or Sarah," Jack murmured. "Which one?" "Your mother came to me the day before she died," Helen continued. She was agitated, insisted on reviewing Tyler's file personally. She said something about making things right, about keeping a promise. I didn't understand then. But she left this. Helen produced an envelope, yellowed with age, sealed with wax bearing the impression of a tree. "The thinking tree," Jack said softly, recognizing the symbol his mother had used on special documents. "She made me swear I'd only open it if something happened to both her and Sarah Mitchell. When Sarah died in that accident 3 years ago, I should have opened it. But I was afraid of what I'd find. Then you walked in here, looking so much like Tyler, wearing your mother's expressions." Jack broke the seal carefully, preserving the tree impression. Inside, he found a letter written in his mother's distinctive hand, dated the day before her death. "My dearest Jack. By the time you read this, both Sarah and I will be gone. The truth I've carried these past 12 years has become too heavy, and Sarah's sacrifice too great to remain hidden. You'll have questions, about Tyler, about the pendant, about the promises made under our old oak tree. The answers will hurt, but you deserve to know. Sarah was more than my best friend. She was my protector, my conscience, and ultimately, my savior. The year I disappeared, I was pregnant. Your father was involved with dangerous people, deals that would have destroyed our family. Sarah knew the truth would destroy you, my precious boy who idolized his father. So she made me promise, under our thinking tree, to let her help. She took my baby, changed her name, created a new life far away. She raised him as her own, loving him with the same fierce devotion she'd shown me in college. Your father never knew. When he died in that suspicious accident 10 years ago, I thought about reclaiming the truth. But Sarah convinced me the danger hadn't passed. The pendant you remember around my neck, I gave it to Sarah the day she took my son. Inside was a key to a safety deposit box containing everything she'd need to protect him. The matching pendant I wore contained the location. Jack, Tyler is your brother. My second son. Sarah died protecting him, just as she protected me. The accident that claimed her life wasn't an accident at all. They found her, just as I feared they would. Now they're close to finding me. I'm leaving this letter with Helen because I trust her, just as Sarah did. If you're reading this, it means Tyler is safe at Hope's Haven, and you've somehow found your way to him. It's time to make things right, to heal the fracture in our family that my fears created. The pendant Tyler wears, open the back panel, not just the locket. You'll find coordinates to the safety deposit box. Everything you need to understand, to protect him, to become the brother and guardian he deserves, is waiting there. I love you, my sweet boy. I love you both more than life itself. Forgive me for the years of silence, for the weight of secrets I've placed on your shoulders. Protect each other. Complete the circle that Sarah and I began under that old oak tree. With all my love and hope for your future together, Mom. Jack looked up from the letter to find Helen crying silently. All these years, she whispered. Sarah brought him here because Elizabeth had told her about our work. She knew we'd keep him safe until you found him. Does Tyler know any of this? Jack asked, his voice raw. No. Sarah protected him from everything, even the truth of his birth. His dreams, though. Helen shook her head in wonder. Children have a way of remembering things their conscious minds can't comprehend. Jack stood, the letter carefully folded in his pocket. I need to see that safety deposit box. But first. He paused, looking through the office window to where Tyler sat reading, the pendant gleaming against his shirt. First, I need to tell my brother who he really is. Be gentle with him, Helen advised. Finding out Sarah wasn't his birth mother. Sarah was every bit his mother, Jack interrupted firmly. She gave up everything to protect him. We'll honor that truth while we help him understand the rest. As Jack walked toward Tyler, he felt the weight of two mothers' love, sacrifice, and protection guiding his steps. The truth had finally emerged from the shadows, but the real challenge, building a future from the fragments of their shared past, was just beginning. Jack sat in his corner office at Thompson Technologies, staring at the untouched coffee on his desk. His phone had been buzzing incessantly for the past hour, the board members demanding an explanation for his sudden request for a 3-month sabbatical. The morning sun glinted off the downtown buildings, reminding him of Tyler's pendant, now safely stored in a secure vault along with its coordinates. This is business suicide, Jack, Marcus Chen, his CFO and longtime friend, paced the office. The Jensen merger is in its final stages. We're about to launch the new tech center. You can't just walk away now. I'm not walking away, Jack replied, his voice steady. I'm taking time to handle a family matter. Family matter? Marcus stopped pacing. Jack, your parents are gone. You're not married. What family? I have a brother. The words felt strange on Jack's tongue, new but right. He's 12, and he needs me. Marcus collapsed into the chair opposite Jack's desk. A brother? How is that even possible? Jack pushed Elizabeth's letter across the desk. As Marcus read, his expression shifted from skepticism to shock. My God, Jack. Does the board know about any of this? No. And they can't, not yet. The people who killed Sarah, who went after my mother, they could be anywhere. I need to access that safety deposit box first, understand exactly what we're dealing with. Marcus raised an eyebrow. I'm not asking you to get involved, Marcus. Like hell you're not. Marcus leaned forward. We've been friends since business school. I was there when your father died, when your mother. He paused. The board won't accept a sabbatical. But they might accept you working remotely while overseeing the new tech center construction. It's close to the orphanage anyway. Jack felt a weight lift slightly. You'll help cover for me. I'll do more than that. My sister's a family law attorney. You'll need her if you're planning what I think you're planning. A knock interrupted them. Jack's assistant, Patricia, stepped in with a concerned look. Mr. Thompson, Hope's Haven is on line 1. They say it's urgent. Jack grabbed the phone. Helen's voice came through, tight with worry. Tyler had another episode. He's asking for you. It's different this time. He's remembering things, specific things about the night Sarah died. I'm on my way. Jack was already grabbing his coat. The board meeting, Marcus reminded him. Handle it for me. Marcus nodded, but grabbed Jack's arm as he passed. Jack, if these people are as dangerous as your mother believed, you need to be careful. Both of you do. 20 minutes later, Jack rushed into Hope's Haven to find Tyler huddled in the library corner, his drawing pad covered in frantic sketches, a car, a rain-soaked road, a figure in the shadows. I remember the other car now, Tyler said as Jack sat beside him. The black sedan. It followed us for miles. Mom kept checking the rearview mirror. She was scared, but trying not to show it. Jack studied the drawings. Tyler, what else do you remember? She made a call. Said something about Elizabeth being right, and they found us. Then she. Tyler's hand trembled over the paper. She told me she loved me, that she wasn't my real mom but that didn't matter because love makes real families. I thought it was just a dream until now. Jack put his arm around Tyler's shoulders, feeling him shake. She was right, you know. About love making real families. Is that why you keep coming back? Because we're... Tyler couldn't finish the sentence. Because we're brothers, Jack completed firmly. I just found out too. But Tyler, it doesn't change who Sarah was to you. She protected you, loved you, gave up everything to keep you safe. From what? From who? Jack wished he had answers. That's what we need to find out. Together. But Tyler, it might be dangerous. These people who hurt Sarah, who scared our mother. Our mother, Tyler repeated softly, testing the words. Elizabeth. The woman from my dreams. He looked up at Jack. Are they still out there? The people in the black sedan. I don't know. But I promise you this, I won't let anything happen to you. We're family, and this time, we'll face whatever's coming together. What happens now? Tyler asked, his voice small but stronger. Now, I talked to Helen about becoming your legal guardian. It won't be easy. My life, my work, everything will need to change. Are you okay with that? Tyler picked up his pencil, adding a final detail to his drawing, two figures standing together against the shadows. Sarah always said change is just life's way of giving you what you need instead of what you planned. Jack smiled, recognizing Elizabeth's wisdom in Sarah's words. Both women had shaped their lives, their brotherhood, through sacrifice and love. Now it was his turn to step up, to be the protector, no matter the cost. Then let's change together, Jack said, as his phone buzzed with another board member's call. He ignored it, focusing instead on his brother's drawing, on the future they'd need to build from the ruins of secrets finally revealed. The safety deposit box was located in a small bank on the outskirts of town, far from the gleaming financial district where Jack normally conducted business. He and Tyler stood before the bank's entrance early Saturday morning, the coordinates from the pendant having led them here. Marcus waited in the car, serving as both driver and lookout. Ready? Jack asked, holding the key they'd found in the pendant's hidden compartment. Tyler nodded, his hand instinctively reaching for the empty spot on his neck where the pendant usually sat. What do you think we'll find? Inside, the bank manager led them to the vault, her eyes widening slightly at the authorization dates on the paperwork. The box hadn't been accessed in over 12 years. The metal drawer slid out with a quiet scrape, revealing a medium-sized manila envelope and a small USB drive. Jack's hands trembled as he opened the envelope. Inside, he found a stack of photographs, legal documents, and a handwritten letter in Sarah's distinctive script. Dear Tyler and Jack. If you're reading this, then both Elizabeth and I are gone, and you finally found each other. The contents of this box will explain everything, but please understand, every choice we made was to protect you both. The USB drive contains financial records. Elizabeth discovered them in Richard's, your father's, private files. They prove his involvement with a criminal organization that used tech companies for money laundering. When she confronted him, he threatened to destroy everything, including Jack's future inheritance of the company. But that wasn't what drove us to such desperate measures. Elizabeth discovered she was pregnant with Tyler just as Richard's associates began showing their true colors. A board member who discovered their scheme died in a suspicious boating accident. Elizabeth knew she couldn't keep Tyler safe while remaining in Richard's orbit. That's when we made our plan under the thinking tree. I would take Tyler, raise him as my own, while Elizabeth maintained her life with Jack and Richard, protecting Jack's future while keeping Tyler hidden. The annual donations to Hope's Haven were our way of ensuring a safe haven would always exist for Tyler if something happened to me. There's more proof in these documents: names, dates, transactions. Everything Elizabeth and I gathered over the years. We hoped it would never be needed, that the organization would fade away after Richard's death. We were wrong. They found me 3 months ago. I've moved us 4 times since then. If you're reading this, they finally succeeded in silencing me. But they don't know about this box, about the evidence we preserved. Take care of each other. Tyler, I may not have given birth to you, but you are my son in every way that matters. I love you more than life itself. Jack, protect him. He's not just your brother, he's the key to exposing the truth and ending this once and for all. With all my love, Sarah. Tyler sat heavily in one of the bank's chairs, his face pale. She knew they were coming for her. That's why she was so scared that night. Jack examined the USB drive, his mind racing. These records, they could expose everything. But after so many years. The new tech center, Tyler said suddenly. I read about it in the newspaper. They're using the same construction company that built Dad's old buildings. The ones mentioned in these documents. Jack's blood ran cold. He quickly shuffled through the papers, finding construction permits and contracts from 12 years ago. The signatures matched current documents he'd recently signed for the new development. They never went away, he realized. They just waited, planted themselves deeper into the company. Marcus needs to see these records. He can help us trace the connections. Is it safe to trust him? Tyler asked, showing a caution that spoke of his years living under Sarah's protective fear. Marcus is family too, just a different kind. Jack's phone buzzed, a text from Marcus outside, black sedan circling the block. Time to go. They quickly secured the documents and drive in Jack's briefcase. As they headed for the exit, Tyler grabbed Jack's arm. Wait. There's something else. In my dreams, Sarah wasn't just running from them. She was looking for something. She kept saying she needed to find the backup, that Elizabeth had hidden it somewhere only we could find it. The thinking tree, Jack said suddenly. Mom's last journal entry mentioned returning to where it all began. We need to go to the old house. They exited the bank carefully, sliding into Marcus's waiting car. As they pulled away, Jack spotted the black sedan in his side mirror, maintaining a discreet distance. We're being followed, Marcus said tersely. Take the long way, Jack instructed. We need to lose them before we head to Cedar Grove. The old neighborhood? Marcus asked, executing a smooth turn onto a busier street. Why? Because that's where this all started, Tyler answered, his voice stronger now. And that's where we'll find the rest of the truth. Jack watched the sedan fall behind in traffic, knowing this reprieve was temporary. The evidence in his briefcase could expose a decades-old criminal enterprise, but something told him the final piece of the puzzle still waited beneath the spreading branches of an old oak tree. Whatever we find, he said to Tyler, we face it together. Tyler nodded, his expression a mirror of Jack's own determination. Together, he agreed, as Marcus's car carried them toward the past and, hopefully, the answers that would secure their future. The old Thompson house stood silent on Cedar Grove, its Victorian architecture a stark contrast to the modern homes that had sprung up around it. Jack hadn't been back since his mother's funeral, but nothing had changed. Even the thinking tree still dominated the side yard, its massive branches reaching toward the afternoon sky. It's exactly like in my dreams, Tyler whispered, staring up at the tree. Even Marcus, usually unflappable, seemed affected by the heavy atmosphere surrounding the property. The house has been in trust since Mom died, Jack explained, unlocking the front door. I couldn't bring myself to sell it. Inside, dust covers draped the furniture like shrouds. Their footsteps echoed on the hardwood floors as they moved through the house. Tyler paused at a family photo on the wall, Jack at 12, the same age Tyler was now, standing beside Elizabeth and Richard Thompson at a company function. He looks exactly like you, Marcus observed, looking between Tyler and the young Jack in the photo. Mom must have seen it every time she looked at me, Tyler said quietly. How did she do it? Raise me, love me, knowing I belong to someone else. Jack placed a hand on his brother's shoulder. Because love isn't about belonging to someone. It's about choosing them, every day. Sarah chose you. Just like I'm choosing you now. Tyler's eyes welled with tears, but he quickly wiped them away. The tree. We need to check the tree. Outside, the afternoon sun filtered through the oak's leaves, creating shifting patterns on the ground. Jack remembered countless afternoons watching his mother sit beneath these branches, writing in her journals or simply staring into distance with an expression he now recognized as longing. There, Tyler pointed to a specific spot between two massive roots. In my dreams, they were always sitting there, making their promise. Jack knelt, running his hands over the bark. Years of weather had created natural hollows and crevices. Tyler joined him, his smaller hands exploring areas Jack couldn't reach. Wait, Tyler said suddenly. His fingers caught on something, a small metal plate, perfectly camouflaged against the bark. When he pressed it, a click echoed from inside the tree. Marcus stepped closer. A hidden compartment. In a tree this old. Mom had it installed when they first bought the house, Jack remembered. She said every thinking tree needed a secret heart. Together, the brothers pried open the concealed door. Inside lay a waterproof case, pristine despite years of exposure. Jack's hand shook as he opened it, revealing another USB drive and a stack of letters, each dated and addressed to either my Jack or my Tyler. She wrote to us, Tyler breathed. All those years. Not just wrote, Jack said, examining the drive. She left us a message. He pulled out his laptop from his briefcase, inserting the drive. A video file appeared, dated just days before Elizabeth's death. Elizabeth Thompson's face filled the screen, older than in the photos but still beautiful, her eyes, so like both her sons, filled with purpose. My darling boys, she began, if you're watching this, you found each other at last. The evidence Sarah and I gathered is only part of the truth. The real power lies in your father's private servers, still running in the sub-basement of Thompson Technologies' old headquarters. The access codes are hidden in the letters I've left you, one piece in each. Together, they'll give you everything you need to end this. She paused, touching her screen as if trying to reach through time to touch them. Jack, my brave firstborn, protect your brother. Your father's old associates will do anything to keep their secrets buried. And Tyler, my sweet surprise, trust your dreams. They're not just dreams, they're memories passed down through love and sacrifice. Sarah and I made sure you'd both have what you needed when the time came. Together, you're stronger than they could ever imagine. The video ended, leaving them in heavy silence. Marcus spoke first, his business mind already working. The old headquarters, it's scheduled for demolition next week. That's why they're moving now, after all these years. They need to destroy the evidence before the building comes down. Then we don't have much time, Jack said, gathering the letters. A sound from the front of the house made them all freeze, car doors closing, footsteps on gravel. The sedan, Marcus whispered, peering through the leaves. They followed us after all. Tyler quickly repacked the case, but instead of showing fear, his expression hardened with determination. There's a back gate, he said. I've seen it in my dreams. Sarah and Elizabeth used it to meet secretly. Jack nodded, impressed by his brother's composure. Marcus, take the evidence. Get it to your sister. We'll meet you at the rendezvous point we discussed. Jack, Marcus protested, but Jack cut him off. They can't get these documents. And they can't get Tyler. Go. We'll be right behind you. As Marcus slipped away through the garden, Jack turned to Tyler. Ready for this? Tyler grabbed his hand, his grip firm. Sarah taught me to be ready for anything. And now I have you too. Together, they moved through the garden paths their mothers had walked so many years ago, their footsteps aligned, their hearts beating in sync. The sounds of pursuit grew closer, but Jack felt no fear, only a fierce protectiveness for the brother he'd just found and a determination to honor the sacrifices that had brought them to this moment. Whatever happens next, Jack said as they reached the gate, we face it as family. Tyler squeezed his hand. The way they always wanted us to. Behind them, voices approached the thinking tree, but its secrets were already safe in the hands of two brothers who had finally found their way home to each other. The old service tunnels beneath Thompson Technologies' original headquarters smelled of damp concrete and aging wiring. Jack led Tyler through the darkness, their footsteps echoing despite their attempts at stealth. His phone's flashlight cast jumping shadows on the walls, while Tyler clutched the decoded access numbers they'd pieced together from Elizabeth's letters. The security office said the building was empty, Jack whispered, pausing at an intersection. But someone's been here recently. Look. He pointed to fresh scuff marks on the floor. They're searching too, Tyler said, his voice steady despite the tension. For the servers. They won't find them without these numbers. Jack checked his watch. Marcus should have the evidence secured by now. We just need to. A door slammed somewhere above them, followed by multiple footsteps. Tyler instinctively moved closer to Jack, but his expression remained determined. The sub-basement access is through the next section, Jack said, consulting the building's old blueprints on his phone. Mom's video said Dad kept his private servers behind a false wall. Something about maintaining complete deniability. They reached a heavy security door. Tyler quickly recited the first sequence of numbers they'd decoded. Jack punched them in, holding his breath until the lock clicked open. His server room beyond was a time capsule, rows of older machines humming steadily, maintained by backup generators even years after the building's apparent abandonment. Jack felt a chill, realizing how long this operation had been running, how deep the deception went. There, Tyler pointed to a section of wall that looked slightly different from the rest. In my dreams, I saw Sarah standing there, taking pictures of documents. She was crying. Jack examined the wall, finding a subtle seam. Another keypad waited behind a hidden panel. Tyler provided the second sequence of numbers, his hand steady as Jack entered them. The false wall slid aside with a pneumatic hiss, revealing a separate server bank. A sleek laptop sat connected to the main unit, its screen displaying active processes. Someone's already accessing the files, Jack realized, sliding into the chair. His fingers flew over the keyboard, years of tech expertise taking over. They're trying to initiate a complete wipe of the system. Can you stop it? I can try to, Jack broke off as footsteps approached their position. Tyler, hide behind the servers. Whatever happens, don't come out until I say it's safe. I'm not leaving you, Tyler protested. Please, Jack gripped his brother's shoulders. Sarah and Mom sacrificed everything to protect you. I won't let that be in vain. Tyler hesitated, then hugged Jack fiercely before ducking behind the server banks. Moments later, the security door opened. 3 men entered, led by someone Jack recognized, Gerald Walsh, his father's old partner and current board member. I had a feeling we'd find you here, Jack, Gerald said, his voice carrying the same false warmth it had at board meetings. Though I hoped you'd be smarter than your mother. It was you, Jack said, positioning himself between the men and Tyler's hiding spot. You ordered the hit on Sarah. Sarah Mitchell was a complication we couldn't afford. Just like your mother became a complication when she started asking questions. Gerald sighed. Your father understood the necessity of compartmentalization. He kept his family separate from business. You should have done the same. My father was a criminal, Jack spat. And you're still using my company to launder money. Your company? Gerald laughed. Thompson Technologies has always been a front. Richard knew that. The real power, the real money, comes from our other enterprises. We gave you the illusion of control because it was convenient. The evidence is already out, Jack warned. Marcus has everything. Marcus Chen is currently having a very interesting conversation with our associates. As for the evidence, Gerald nodded to one of his men, who moved toward the servers. You can't bury this forever, Jack said, his mind racing for options. No. Gerald pulled out a gun, its silencer already attached. Your mother thought the same thing. She believed hiding her second son would somehow protect her secrets. Instead, she died alone, while Sarah Mitchell raised your brother in fear. And now, history repeats itself. A small sound came from behind the servers, Tyler shifting position. Gerald's eyes narrowed. Ah, he smiled. The young Mr. Thompson is here too. Perfect. We can resolve all our loose ends at once. He's just a kid, Jack said, desperation creeping into his voice. He's a liability. Like father, like sons, all liabilities in the end. The gun raised. Jack tensed, preparing to move. But before Gerald could fire, alarms suddenly blared throughout the building. Emergency lights strobed, and the server room door slammed shut automatically. Building security protocol initiated, a computerized voice announced. All exits sealed. Gerald cursed, turning to his men. Override it. They can't, Jack smiled grimly. Because while you were talking, I wasn't just standing here. That laptop you used to access the servers. It's now running a program that's broadcasting everything, all the files, all the evidence, directly to the FBI's cybercrime division. Mom's final failsafe. Shouts echoed from above, but not Gerald's reinforcements. The heavy sound of FBI tactical teams deploying filled the building. Gerald's face contorted with rage. The gun swung toward Jack. 2 shots rang out. The gunshots echoed through the server room, but it wasn't Jack who fell. Gerald Walsh stood frozen, his eyes wide with shock, as red bloom spread across his expensive suit. Behind him stood Marcus Chen, his service weapon, a remnant from his FBI days that Jack had never known about, still raised. Federal agent, Marcus announced as the tactical team breached the room. Though I've been inactive for the past 8 years, working deep cover. He kept his weapon trained on Gerald's men as they were quickly subdued. You okay, Jack? Jack could only nod, his heart hammering. Tyler, he called out. I'm here. Tyler emerged from behind the servers, shaken but unharmed. He ran to Jack, who pulled him into a tight embrace. You're an agent? Jack asked Marcus as the tactical team secured the scene. Was. After your father's suspicious death, the Bureau suspected Thompson Technologies was being used for money laundering. They needed someone on the inside. Marcus holstered his weapon. I was fresh out of Quantico, with a genuine MBA. Perfect cover. All these years. I couldn't tell you. We knew the organization had high-level law enforcement connections. Any leak could have compromised the investigation. Marcus looked genuinely apologetic. When you showed up at Hope's Haven, when Tyler's existence came to light, everything started falling into place. FBI technicians swarmed the server room, securing the data Jack had transmitted. Gerald Walsh was being treated by paramedics, his wounds serious but not fatal. Your mother suspected someone was watching her, Marcus continued. She reached out to the Bureau weeks before her death, but before she could formally meet with agents. He trailed off. They killed her, Tyler said quietly. Like they killed Sarah. A female agent approached them, her badge identifying her as Special Agent Rivera. We need to get you both to a secure location, she said. Mr. Chen's transmission of the evidence has triggered simultaneous raids across 3 states. There will be retaliation attempts. Wait, Jack said. The laptop in there, there's something else you need to see. He led them back to the server room, where he accessed a hidden folder Elizabeth had outlined in her letters. Inside were detailed records of every operation the organization had run through Thompson Technologies, along with a video file. Richard Thompson's face filled the screen, the timestamp showing it was recorded just days before his death. Elizabeth, if you're seeing this, then you finally found the evidence you've been searching for. Richard looked tired, haunted. You were right about everything. I built this company with dirty money, convinced myself it was necessary for our family's success. When you told me you were pregnant again, I thought I could protect another child from the truth. Instead, I drove you away, forced you to hide our son. He paused, removing his glasses. Walsh and the others don't know I'm recording this. They think the accident they're planning for me will tie up loose ends. But I've made copies of everything, every transaction, every crime, every name. When you find this, take it to the authorities. Give our boys the chance to rebuild the company the right way, the way you always wanted. The video ended. Jack felt Tyler's hand slip into his, squeezing tight. Your father tried to make it right in the end, Marcus said softly. Too late, Jack replied, but Tyler shook his head. Not too late, Tyler insisted. Mom, Elizabeth, she found this. She and Sarah, they protected it all these years, protected us, so we could finish what he started. Special Agent Rivera was already copying the files. This is enough to take down their entire network. The offshore accounts, the shell companies, everything. What happens now? Tyler asked, looking between Jack and Marcus. Now, Marcus said, you both go into protective custody until we've secured all the conspirators. Then. He smiled slightly. Then Jack can start rebuilding his company. The right way. Our company, Jack corrected, looking at Tyler. Mom wanted us to do this together. Tyler's eyes lit up. Really? Really? But first, Jack turned to Agent Rivera, there's something I need to do. Something that can't wait any longer. Hours later, in a secure FBI location, Jack sat beside Tyler as they reviewed the adoption paperwork Marcus's sister had prepared. The documents would make official what their hearts already knew, they were family. Are you sure? Tyler asked, watching Jack sign his name. Your life was so much simpler before all this. Simpler isn't always better, Jack replied. Mom knew that. Sarah knew it too. They chose the harder path because it was the right one. He handed Tyler the pen. Your turn, if you want this too. Tyler took the pen, his hand steady as he signed his new name, Tyler Mitchell Thompson. For both our moms, he said quietly. For both our moms, Jack agreed, pulling his brother close. Outside their secure room, agents worked to dismantle the criminal enterprise that had shaped their lives from the shadows. But in here, two brothers who had found each other against impossible odds began planning their future, one built on truth, justice, and the love of two extraordinary women who had sacrificed everything to make this moment possible. 3 months later, Jack stood in the renovated lobby of Thompson Technologies, now renamed Thompson & Thompson Innovation Partners. The company's new logo featured a stylized oak tree, its branches reaching upward while its roots spelled out the initials E and S, a tribute to Elizabeth and Sarah that few would understand but meant everything to the brothers. Tyler sat at a desk near Jack's office, working on his homework. He'd insisted on coming to the office after school, claiming the corporate environment helped him focus. Jack suspected it had more to do with not wanting to let his brother out of his sight, a feeling he understood completely. Mr. Thompson, his assistant called. The package you've been waiting for has arrived. Jack's heart quickened. He'd been tracking this delivery for weeks, working with investigators to authenticate its contents. Tyler, he called. It's here. Tyler looked up, immediately understanding. They'd been waiting for this since the FBI had cleared them to return to their normal lives, or rather, their new normal. The package sat on Jack's desk, wrapped in brown paper and secured with evidence tape. With trembling fingers, Jack broke the seal and unwrapped it, revealing an old wooden box with intricate carvings. The agent said they found it in a safety deposit box in Sarah's name, Jack explained, in a small bank in Montana. She'd rented it just days before the accident. Tyler touched the carvings. I remember this box. She used to take it out late at night when she thought I was sleeping. But I never knew what was inside. Together, they opened the lid. Inside lay a stack of letters, each dated and sealed, and a small velvet pouch. But what caught their attention was a DVD in a case marked Play Me First. Jack inserted it into his laptop, and Sarah's face appeared on the screen. The video was dated the day before her death. My dearest Tyler and Jack, she began, looking more tired than in the photos they had but still radiating warmth. If you're watching this, then everything Elizabeth and I feared has come to pass. But it also means you found each other, and that makes all our sacrifices worthwhile. She held up a familiar object, Tyler's pendant. This necklace holds more than just coordinates and keys. The true secret is in its twin, the one Elizabeth wore. She demonstrated how to press certain points on the pendant's surface in sequence, revealing a hidden compartment they hadn't known existed. In the velvet pouch, Sarah continued, you'll find Elizabeth's pendant. Together, they contain proof of something we never dared tell anyone, not even you, Tyler. The truth about your father. Jack and Tyler exchanged glances before opening the pouch. Inside was Elizabeth's pendant, identical to Tyler's. Following Sarah's instructions, they opened both secret compartments. Inside each was a small microfilm and a photograph. The first showed Elizabeth and Sarah as young women, standing with a man neither brother recognized. The second was a marriage certificate. Richard Thompson wasn't Tyler's father, Sarah revealed in the video. Elizabeth had fallen in love with my brother, David, while she was separated from Richard. They married in secret, but before they could start their life together, David discovered evidence of Richard's criminal activities. The organization eliminated him, making it look like a climbing accident. Elizabeth was already pregnant with Tyler. The brothers stared at the documents in shock. Tyler wasn't just Jack's half-brother, he was Sarah's nephew, explaining her fierce dedication to protecting him. "We couldn't tell you, Tyler," Sarah continued, tears in her eyes. "It was too dangerous. But your father was a hero. He died trying to expose the same corruption you and Jack have finally brought to light." The video continued, revealing more details about David Mitchell, the love story that had brought their mothers together, and the complex web of relationships that had shaped their lives. "The microfilm contains David's original evidence," Sarah explained. "Keep it safe. There may be more layers to this conspiracy than even we understood." She paused, composing herself. "Tyler, my precious boy, I may not have been your birth mother, but being your aunt and guardian was the greatest joy of my life. Jack, watching you grow up from afar, seeing the men you've become, your mother was right about you both. Together, you're unstoppable." The video ended, leaving the brothers in stunned silence. Tyler picked up the photo of his real father, tracing the features they shared. "That's why you could never find records of my birth," he said quietly. "They weren't under the Thompson name." Jack placed a hand on his shoulder. "This doesn't change anything between us. We're still brothers, just even more connected than we thought," Tyler finished, smiling slightly. "Through all of them, Elizabeth, Sarah, and David." Jack examined the microfilm. "We should get this to Marcus. If there's more to uncover, we'll face it together," Tyler said firmly. "All of it. For all of them." Looking at their company's new logo, at the intertwined roots representing their mothers, Jack realized they needed to add another branch, one for David Mitchell, the men whose love and sacrifice had set this entire story in motion. "Mom said the truth would be complicated," Jack mused. "But I don't think even she knew just how deep it went." Tyler carefully repacked the box, but kept the photo of his father out. "Think there are more surprises waiting in those letters?" "Probably," Jack smiled. "But whatever we find, whatever comes next, we've got each other. And 3 guardian angels watching over us." 4, Tyler corrected, looking at David's photo. 4 guardian angels. As the afternoon sun streamed through the office windows, casting shadows like oak branches across the floor, the brothers began reading the letters their mothers had left them, each one revealing more layers to their extraordinary family story, each page strengthening the bonds that no secret, no conspiracy, and no force on earth could break. The truth had finally emerged, more complex and beautiful than they'd imagined, woven with threads of love, sacrifice, and the unshakable conviction that family, in all its forms, was worth any price to protect.